face of my conscience, coming to understand of
March
myself.
11th,
Clear out all the old
2023.
cobwebs.
If it's 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, it's time for This Week in Waukesha. I'm your host, Don Brown, coming to you live and local from the office of former Alderman Don Paul Brown, also known as the Walk Radio Studios here in the NAMI building at 217 Wisconsin Avenue, right around the corner from Theodore Yaumans Park, where we are proud to honor our suffragette heritage here in the Shaw. And speaking of suffragettes, I have a very special guest, a candidate for the 2nd District Aldermanic seat, challenging longtime incumbent Eric Payne. Waukesha, please say good morning to Bob Salb. Bob, how are you today?
Doing great.
Good, good. Now, before we get to Bob, we have another new special, well, not a guest because she'll be a permanent fixture here joining us, is Anastasia, our engineer in training, along with Calvin, who's been terrific. Good morning. So it's nice having two in the studio. And Anastasia, I know you're in great hands there with Calvin. How you doing, Anastasia? Say hi real quick.
I'm good. How are you doing?
Great. You've got an excellent radio voice, so that's a good start. You know, and Calvin's he's kind of shy. We have a hard time getting him on, so we'll be looking forward to more great things from Anastasia. And not that we don't love Calvin. So, but Calvin looks a lot like Warren Zevon, and I've been pushing this on my show and throughout social media. Please do the right thing, America. Waukesha. Elect Warren Zevon to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's finally been nominated. Let's do the right thing. It's vote.rockhall, ROCKHALL.com. So, back here to Bob Salb. Really glad you could make it. And for those of you who don't know, Bob and his wife, Lisa, as you may recall, was on the show last year. She ran for mayor. And so they've been very active in Waukesha life. And probably what they may be most known for is they bought and they've been restoring the historic Blair House on the top of the hill there. And that's the Tower Hill neighborhood, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
That's correct. So, but Bob's been he's been self-employed and been in business basically kind of in the, would we say the landscaping and construction industry or home building industry? How do we describe that?
Well, I'm currently a sales support role for the state of Wisconsin and state of Iowa for a landscape supply company. So
sounds great. Does that require a lot of travel?
Not as much, but it'll
a lot you can do virtually.
Yeah, like now we're doing still. COVID's kind of changed the world in some of that regard. So a lot of stuff is done on.
Sounds great. Terrific. So let's cut right to the chase. Why do you want to be alderman?
Why do I want to be alderman and why am I running?
Both.
Two different things.
Yeah.
I think it's two different things.
Okay.
I feel that Waukesha needs more representation from the constituents. And following social media, my wife and I being, very involved with, local events and, happenings, stuff going on. I just see it said so many times, the city did this or the city allowed that. And I always just would get frustrated and say, we are the city. You just need to stand up and come to public comments, be involved, be notified. And I just believe there needs to be a better avenue for that, to getting the public more involved so the constituents know what's going down.
Sure.
And that's my game plan to do that.
That's terrific. And some of that you and Lisa have already put in place. You started a neighborhood association, correct?
We did not start it. We got involved by moving into the Blair House, and it was it was a Madison Street and then the Tower Hill district, it's called. And Lisa was involved with it first, and I kind of got further involved. Ended up getting super involved where we wanted to get a 501c3 to be able to expand and do grants and stuff.
Nice.
We are the most active neighborhood community within the city, but I was, helped facilitate getting the 501c3, submitting for grants and creating the. I don't know if it's known on your radio thing, but the Neighborhood Watch safety program. So I took the old Neighborhood Watch placard, and turned it into like a cyber program, using social media and distributing free cameras for people when they want them, and helping put a network together, building community within that, and I think has been very successful in the Tower Hill neighborhood, which encompasses almost 400
Right.
homes
Sure.
within there. So
Okay. So you're not just coming in here, wet behind the ears, or like many candidates that really, like myself included, that were never really that active in city government. You and Lisa, and I know this from my time on the council, were regular attendees at city council meetings. You've given public comment on a myriad of issues. And as you mentioned before the show, when you're not able to attend, you catch city council meetings on Granicus,
Yep.
which is our virtual, the live stream. And I don't know if many residents know about that they can do that.
it is a great tool. I think that part of another effect of COVID, where people weren't going meeting in public, and it was kind of pushed the whole media relation to that. But basically, you can even see watch public comment. Actually, the news reporters used to be there in the common council meetings all the time.
Sure.
And you don't see them anymore because they're just sitting at home in their underwear at 9 o'clock at night, watching Granicus and making notes. So it's interesting how they have all these quotes and everything, and they weren't there, but
Sure.
utilizing Granicus for it. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. So Bob, let's pretend like we're going door to door right now.
Right.
What is it you're telling? What's your elevator pitch, or your, I guess we'd, in this case, your front porch pitch, front door pitch when you meet a neighbor and you're giving them a flyer? Like what is it they want them to know about you, and why you think you'll make a great elder?
Well, my platform is like, we are the city, and I'm part of that. The constituents need to have a better voice, and that's I'll be expressing that. How are we going to do that? Just through different social media. I will. Jumping back to some previous aldermen, I do not know of any aldermen right now that are that open and vocal in a social media environment or holding town halls. There used to be previous aldermen that would have these meetings when something, if there's an important issue that's going to affect this constituents. I feel that's that alderman's responsibility to notify them, get their, how do you, how can you sit up there in that council chambers and say, well, I'm, representing my constituents, and you have no feedback from them at all, right?
That's an excellent point.
I can only speak for my current alderman, and one issue is coming up. It was just recently went around. It's a sidewalk issue. Are you aware with that at all?
I'm not.
Okay, so
I'm embarrassed to say.
Well, but the city said, hey, we need to do something, address the sidewalks and where they're missing and the cost, and they're forcing people to put sidewalks in, and some of the businesses that. They're like, why? There's no sidewalks before mine or after mine, and you're making me pay for this sidewalk. And so there was a letter that went out to all their aldermen and said, basically, get feedback from your constituents. And I'm paraphrasing that, and then we're going to have these conversations and discussions. I've talked to like about a dozen people that I know from through church, whatever, different people within not just my district but from other ones. And no one's aware of it. No one, no alderman that I can see has gotten feedback from their constituents to see how it would affect them. That's just one small microcosm of that.
Sure,
what
that's
I'm
a great
referring
point.
to. So.
Well, and you mentioned the meetings, and not to toot my own horn, but when I was alderman, I had meetings, even if there weren't any hot button issues, just to engage with the constituents. I'd also invite local business. I'd invite anyone from the community. And I'd also put it on the agenda, the city agenda, so that other alders could come. And the idea was just to build a more connected community. Is that part of your plan?
Well, and I've been doing that with the Tower Hill neighborhood for close to probably 6 of our 7 years. We've been
Great
at the Blair House. We've invited up to hundreds of people to come to our house. We'll get about 20 to 30, maybe. I think we've had up to 35 or something for. We call it S'mores on the Hill. Come in, just
S'mores on the Hill. I love that.
We have a fire and fire pit. People come and see the view of Waukesha from the Blair House.
Sure.
Hill. And but being involved with that, doing the different campaign stuff, we established a yearly now picnic, just trying to get the community involved. We don't usually talk politics or religion at those events,
and you don't have to.
But it's just building
Sure.
community, and that's our vision statement for the Tower Hill neighborhood. And when I'm putting those grants together, and now my wife has been taking over with that, but saying it's the sense of building community. I'm going to now look at building that within the constituents of this different district than what
Sounds great. So we're going to take a quick pause just for some exciting local news. A lot happened this week in the world of Waukesha sports. On March 7th, which was last Tuesday, the WIAA's control board voted to approve the recommendation to move the Waukesha North and Waukesha South varsity football teams into the Parkland Conference starting in 2024. They will be playing in a much more equitable conference where the student body population, demographics, and resources are more evenly matched for fair play. Special thanks and congrats to so many who worked so hard on this campaign for the health, safety, and fair play of our student athletes, including athletic directors Carl Anderson of North, Dan Schreier of South Super Dad Jared Dable, head coach Darnell Wiltz and his staff, Jim Santel, my colleague from Morning Cannolis, that's on at 9 o'clock for his legal inputs, Earl Ingram and Kristen Bray from Civic Media for raising awareness on their respective shows. So grateful to everybody involved, and also, again, a good testament to the power of our growing mission here at Civic Media to focus on local news and raise awareness for the things that are important to us. And so, and it's a great little segue back to Bob. Are there any specific hot button issues right now that you've been involved in, like with watching the city council, or you mentioned the sidewalks, any others that you'd want to raise awareness here on Civic Media?
Well, one that was just basically kind of finalized was the chicken ordinance, and there's another case that I totally agree that needed to be an ordinance. There has to be that type of control.
Sure.
It wasn't a cookie cutter thing. It wasn't pleasant seeing some of the communication at the council level, or lack thereof, and the different viewpoints. So once again, it just didn't seem like this is what the constituents want. It was more of banter between them. But
Sounds
then
good.
the probably the biggest issue that's been built and going forward is the cost of our
Sounds
city
great.
water.
Okay.
So.
Hey, when we continue with 2nd District Aldermanic candidate Bob Salb, we're going to hear more about some of these hot-button issues that he's focusing on and are part of his campaign, and some more great news about Waukesha sports, including Carroll University. Don't go away. This Week in Waukesha continues.
There was whiskey on Sunday and tears in our cheeks. He sang me a song that was pure as a breeze, and the road leading up Glenavy.
Hey, we're back this week in Waukesha, and that's me doing my best Shane McGowan and the Pogues with one of my favorite airs, the Broad Majestic Shannon. And St. Patrick's Day is around the corner, and what kind of Irishman would I be if I was not promoting that? We had Michael Crowley, County Board Supervisor, as my guest last week, and so we are talking about our shared Irish heritage and how Waukesha doesn't have a very big or very active Irish community. In fact, what I love the most is the one downtown businessman who's perhaps the most Irish of them all, believe it or not, is Dan Italiano, owner of Magellan's. Okay. Yes, he's Italian on his father's side, but he's Irish on his mother's side. And on St. Patrick's Day, he wears this leather apron that's so cool. That it was like a butcher's apron that he got when he was in Ireland many years ago. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of fun there at Magellan's on St. Patrick's Day and in a lot of other places. But again, be safe, be responsible, and have fun. You can do all three. So, but Bob, I mentioned Mike Crowley because on this show he had a bombshell announcement, which we love, and that is he announced that he's going to run for mayor when incumbent Sean Riley is ready to step down. And I don't know if that's the end of this term or the next term after that, but we love those special announcements on This Week in Waukesha. Have you any of your own other than the fact that you're running for alderman? I'll give you time. We still have like more than a half hour, so we can any good bombshells there. We like to have some fun. So
I'm running for president.
There you go. So
No.
Well,
I have none. So.
For those of you who aren't like catching the Facebook live stream, Bob has the hair of a candidate. He's got great. If I had Bob's hair, I'd be in the governor's office right now. No disrespect to Governor Evers, but Bob has beautiful hair, full hairline. A candidate's look. So anyway, on to more, I guess, concrete or less superficial issues. we were starting to talk about some of the hotbed. We talk about the chickens, of course, which that I don't know if that'll ever go away. But what are some of the other hot button issues you're focusing on and you want to raise awareness about, or you maybe have a different or a fresh approach to?
Well, most things have been passed, but I mean, as things come up, would be more of the bringing the attention to as issues come up. Water will be ongoing for the longest time.
Yep.
It'll be noted in the Freeman. My biggest concern is just seeing how many apartments are going up instead of like affordable housing stock
And single unit housing.
I've just seen so many torn down.
Yeah.
Habitat Advantage, the partnership has been a great thing. I just believe in supporting that wholeheartedly. An old industrial neighborhood where we raised our 4 kids on the other side of Waukesha, by the Arrow Shade location, that being redeveloped into that affordable housing stock. But unfortunately, affordable housing stock is now, in the $300,000 to $500,000 range, and that.
Well, that's it. And there's another term I learned through my work is when you think of affordable housing, you think maybe lower income families, but there's an even bigger crisis, and that's workforce housing.
Yeah.
And you think of our first responders, our teachers, heck, maybe even some of our independent small business owners. That impacts them and their ability to buy a home. Yeah. And so, any ideas, especially because you have some professional experience in that space, any experience for how we can promote affordable workforce housing in Waukesha? I know this is a zinger, but,
Yeah. Just through as issues come up, and trying to throttle down, the push for so many apartment buildings and saying, where, finding, locations, and it's part of the development, the planning and development from the city to what can we do about it. And I believe they've addressed it and looked at it. It's been, an issue there, but it's just something that, it's building a tax space. How do we build, the community of Waukesha without it just being apartments, and finding ways to do that,
Yeah.
So.
Yep, absolutely. So, and here's another one is it's been very public that City Administrator Kevin Lehner is being courted by the city of Janesville for that city administrator position.
He announced that he's leaving.
Oh, so that's been formal. Okay.
Oh, yeah. If you watched Granicus the last time,
because how
he accepted the position.
I had the inside scoop because I was broadcasting the Waukesha South playoff game against Janesville Parker on Friday. Unfortunately, the Black Shirts lost last Saturday to Indian Trail Kenosha, an amazing team. So, congrats on a good season for the Black Shirts. But my counterparts in Janesville had said that he was pretty much the favorite, that he was going to get the job, that there were a lot of people pulling for him down there. But now that he's gone and there'll be a search for a new city administrator, he's leaving, excuse me. Kevin hasn't left yet.
Yeah.
How would you see your roles at all? Like, what's the process you would like to see for finding a successor for Kevin?
Well, I think you might have been in that your alderman role when there were some incorrect things that he did. There was questions of, instead of him being disciplined, he got a raise. And so it'd be looking for someone that understands, the role and how to work, I think, better with the community. There was just so many things that, and some of that's personal opinion that I'd probably keep to myself, but I just, in going through the interviewing process, making sure, what their skill sets are, and understanding and having that personality of being able to meet with customers.
Anastasia, how are we doing on time? I understand we have a caller on hold. We've got 1 minute. Okay. Let's put him on. I believe this is Jared Dable. Jared, hi, can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, Don.
Great. So, Jared, we announced the big news from the WIA. How are you feeling about that? You must be really excited.
I am. I'm hopefully optimistic. There were a couple teams that are appealing the decision, but I think it's one team per conference, one from the Parkland, one from the Classic 8. So I don't think that there's going to be too many roadblocks for us up ahead, and looking forward to the 2024 season.
That sounds great. Well, I just, we're coming to a break, so I just wanted to take this moment to thank you for all of your efforts and keep up the good work. And we've got a lot of talk to do about how we're going to navigate this final season in the Classic 8. So, Jared Dable, thanks for calling in. And Yeah, if you think of anything else, call right back. But we're really grateful for your efforts as a super dad and a youth coach. And hopefully we'll see you on the sidelines this fall coaching our kids. So when we return on this week in Waukesha, we've got some great news from Carroll Athletics, as well as more fruitful discussions with Bob Salb, candidate for 2nd District Alderman, when This Week in Waukesha continues. Don't go away.
They're all gone in the years, but so what's day, what's done, where small birds sing.
By a lonely prison wall, I heard a young girl calling.
Michael, they have taken you away. Hey, we're back this week in Waukesha, and that's one of my favorite Irish ballads, Fields of Athen Rye, which has in recent years become a fight song at Irish soccer and rugby games. The fans cheer, they do the chorus line, and it's a story about a young man who gets jailed for stealing corn so he could feed his children during the Irish famine. And it's been kind of a rallying cry for Irish sports fans in the current day. And it's one of my dreams for Waukesha South is that I get the fans to sing the chorus line from Fields of Athen Rye during the games as a kind of a rally cry. Fits well with our mission there at Southie. But speaking of Waukesha South, I want to mention, too, is mark your calendars for April 15th, the Waukesha South Booster Club's Raise the Bar annual fundraiser at a new venue, the Stackner Ballroom at Carroll University. And I just want to say that the Waukesha South Booster Club works tirelessly year-round to raise funds or in-kind donations to help financially support 30 diverse clubs with 580-plus participants, drama, music, robotics, and 27 sports with 700-plus athletes annually to benefit all students in extracurricular programs at South. And stats show that students who participate in as little as one club, athletic or art, achieve higher test scores, GPAs, and overall better mental health. Many extracurricular programs need supplemental or total funding assistance, but we can't do it alone. And I want to say one of the beneficiaries of this effort is the Waukesha South mock trial team, who recently won the state championship, their second in 2 years. Can you say dynasty? Members of the team, including Reed Miller, who was a freshman on the first state championship team, and his mom, Coach Libby, will be my guests on next week's show, along with other members of the team. So you can't miss this show. It's a great group of young kids representing our city, and they're I believe they're on their way to nationals, so best of luck to them. And we mentioned that Raise the Bar, April 15th, is at the Stackner Ballroom. It's a new venue, and at Carroll University. And so I just, before we return to Bob Salb, candidate for 2nd District Alderman, I have a couple amazing announcements from Carroll University Athletics I want to jump to real quick. And that's on March 7th. We'll start with the Nationals. Mary Quinn of Carroll University's women's track team and field became the Pioneers' first women's pentathlon national participant on Friday, competing in 5 events throughout the day. Quinn finished with 3,050 points and finished 19th in the field. Congrats to this senior from Chicago who was PIO strong. Quinn, she began her day with 60-mile hurdles, run of 9.30, and then followed up with a sprint with a PR-tying performance in the high jump, easily clearing 1.55 meters. So she had quite a day. And then Steve Hermson of Carroll's men indoor track and field team finished in sorry, I'm having problems with my Google Doc here. Let's go back to Steve here. So, yes, he finished in 6th place in the weight throw at the 2023 National Division III Indoor Track and Field Championships yesterday. He is now a 2-time USTF CCCA All-American in the event. Hemson's a grad student from De Pere, and he had one of his best competitions of the season, landing over 18 meters on every attempt. He competes today in the shot put event starting at 11 a.m. So best of luck to Steven and Carroll. And then on Wednesday, the Carroll women's lacrosse team defeated UW Lacrosse 20-11, led by 6 goals from Clara Jelasic, 5 goals from Trina Harden, 4 goals from Rebecca Hallman, 2 goals from Samantha Hurd, and 1 goal from Lexi Kaltenberg. 1 goal each from Lexi, Abby Stas, and Jenu Patel. Hellman and Kaltenberg each had 3 assists in this winning effort for the 4-1 Pioneers women's lacrosse team. So pay attention to what's going on over there. So grateful for this new partnership we're forming with Carroll University here at Walk Radio and Civic Media, and looking forward to broadcasting their football season coming up in the fall and their men's and women's basketball, and more on that in the coming months. But congrats again to Carroll Athletics for a very busy and very great week, a milestone week, shall we say. So, but we're back here with Bob Salb, candidate for 2nd District Alderman, and we are talking about some recent issues you were focusing on. And so, one question, have I missed anything on that? Did we?
I don't think so.
Okay, good. It was a busy news week, so I had really to put in a lot of other great things. But so Alder is a part-time job in theory, but I know from my experience it was closer to a full-time job based on your commitment, your dedication to the city, which you and your wife Lisa currently demonstrate in a lot of your community involvements. But it's always the big question is, how do you balance work life with your aldermanic duties?
Well, part of it, answer that. I was originally going to run against Eric Payne like 6 years ago.
Okay.
I should say, because of having a feeling of not being represented even going back then, but because of my job situation, it was kind of unknown. So I held off on that,
Okay.
and so then the second time that happened, but I feel like now I'm in a job position that I have that freedom. If I take a PTO day, whatever, I kind of control my own schedule.
Sure.
And kind of do that. So,
Sure.
But I mean, besides being involved in the Tower Hill neighborhood, I'm the head of the Springs Committee for the city of Waukesha. It's an unknown, ad hoc committee, but making sure the springs are, they're besides the cleanup days, but facilitating getting like Hobo Springs was busted up, helped facilitate getting the funding and getting that restored. Miniska cleanup and stuff. Acme was busted up and we got that restored. Working on graffiti on that, and working towards other future spring that
Sure.
come to light and be able
Sure.
to do that. So so that's why I say I'm building community and still part of it in that regards to that. So I balance life. Lisa and I raised our kids early. Mm-hmm. So age, I have a granddaughter that's
You're a young-looking grandpa, yeah.
I have a 19-year-old granddaughter that's a freshman in college, and down to I have 8 grandkids total, with down to like a 1-year-old, from 1-year-old to
And you
19.
don't have a gray hair on your head either.
I have gray hair there. It sits in there. So
you do a good job hiding it. I don't see one.
no, it's there. Lisa cuts it out. No,
there you go.
But I forgot where I was at with that.
But
But
your family, your family's a part of Waukesha.
Oh yeah, so we raised them earlier. So we know that there's very few people that get involved. Like look at I think there's 5 or 6 aldermen that are up for election and nobody's running against them.
Yeah, that kills me, and I've talked about that a lot on my show.
Yeah, nobody takes that time, and it's understandable. People
We're busy. Yeah.
in that at my age area, they still have high school kids at home and doing stuff like that. So. That's understandable. So like Lisa and I are in a different position where we're afforded to be able to do that.
Sure.
Take that time and be involved in the community more. So,
So it sounds like you could enlist some 2 generations of Selbs to help with the campaign, with the canvassing. Is that fair to say?
Well, yes, we have. One of my daughters is a professional photographer. One's a art director. One's he's a teacher, but does DJ stuff, and then an IT.
You got a creative team, yeah. So you could have a party then with the DJ if
yeah,
if the spirit moved you.
Have that. So
that's great.
I can't afford them, but that's
there you go. I love it. So, and then you and Lisa have been very deliberate, I would say, on the work you're doing to restore the Blair House. And I know someday the plan is to open it as a B&B. Is that correct?
Yep. It seems longer.
Sure.
But part of it is when we started removing the ceilings and getting, we thought we'd be able to utilize more stuff that was in there, and it, became evident it wasn't a possibility. So
sure.
It went from, altering some wiring to basically rewiring the whole house through plaster walls and
Sure.
meticulously restoring 12-inch crown molding
Sure.
and plaster work, and then more plaster work. And
Right.
I just I went to Chicago, got certified for historic tuck pointing
Nice.
training, and
Okay.
just tuck pointed one of the historic chimneys last fall.
You did it yourself.
Yeah. So,
All right.
so that's part of it. If we would pay contractors, we would be upside, down in a lick of time. It's the houses. It's very expensive what it's taking to restore it.
Sure.
Time,
Sure.
time and money, and more
Yeah.
time than money.
Do you have at this point a timeline for when you'd like, or is that still in the works? Still a lot of work to be done.
We just try to shy away from that. We have no commitments. People thought that
Right.
there's something.
Yeah.
We had a original game plan of 5 years.
Okay.
I think some of my job changes, prevented me from getting much done.
Sure.
But we're back fully on track. Like I say, working for a landscape supply, you'll see it'll be lit up very nicely. I'm certified in landscaping, and I have the stuff. We just have to get the trim, on the house painted and
Terrific.
fix some of that stuff up, and so you'll see that
Sure.
changes going along.
How are we doing on time, Anastasia? I think you gave me a hand signal and I missed it. 3 minutes. Okay, we had good time. So here's a question that's near and dear to me, Bob.
Okay.
Waukesha has a poverty problem. We've got, and when you look at statistically, it matches any other city our size. Like, I believe it's like 11% that live below the poverty line. At least it was when I was alder. But I've learned in recent years that it is more profound than the numbers show. And what would you as alder do as a way to help maybe address some of these issues we have with homelessness and poverty? And I go over to the Waukesha County food pantry where I'm involved, and the line just gets bigger and bigger. And these are families that look like working families. I hate to use the word normal, but families that look, that they own a home or they've got a decent place to live, and they're having a hard time. What can we as a city do at the local level to, help support quality of life for this segment of our population?
Well, certainly not keep raising water costs and taxes. It makes it harder for the cost of living in that regards. Going back to as being part of the Tower Hill neighborhood and getting involved there's CDBG grant funds out there, and I don't know if you're aware, but
I used to be on the board with Mike Crowley, actually.
Okay,
yeah,
so. And there's a couple different NARSAs that are looking for people like in our neighborhood organization to put together programs to be able to help with those functions. It takes some people helping to be able to do that, and being creative and coming up with, hey, there's probably, if somebody came up and said, hey, I want to create this program for like the food, share thing, right? There's funds that are available out there to help with those in regards. Okay. But it takes people to step forward and be able to help with that. So as far as me initiating any specific program, I don't have anything in the plans, but the homeless issue is a concern for me. I don't know what's been done to be addressed with it. When you talk about the poverty level of Waukesha, a lot of those homeless people, now granted, you understand my home location.
Yep.
We, on a regular basis, deal with homeless things within either stuff hidden in our yard or people trying to start a fire in my fire pit and say, no, you can't, or having a beer party in my front swing thinking that it's some, business or something.
Like it's a park, yeah.
And, but most of them aren't from Waukesha. They're coming from different communities because there's some resources here that they don't get elsewhere.
Oh, because our county seat probably. One factor, and
I can't speak off of this as being factual, but just people saying there's actually people bussed in, they're bussed here from other communities and then dropped off. So
I've heard that, and I don't know, but I know with our bus system that's a possibility, but. Oh. Yeah, and that's because I remember from my Chicago days living in Evanston, that was always the solution was, take them over to Howard Street, which was the border of Chicago and Evanston, and that's where the police would take any of these, homeless or vague, that if they're more in a problem-causing situation, for lack of a better term, that's where they would be sent. And, yeah, you're right, just dropped off there and with a stern warning, don't ever come back, this, that, and the other, and Well, you got the L there, and you got your 2 feet, and and the bus system, and so it doesn't seem like there's a real hard solution. I know that's a tough question to throw at you with the campaign coming up, but
well, and some of the answers might not be popular, or the solutions might not be popular for some of that homelessness.
Yep.
I through my career, I've traveled to New York.
Sure.
Ed Koch. I'm sorry.
Let's put a pin in that. When we come back, we're going to finish this conversation with Bob Salve as well as other campaign hot buttons when this Week in Waukesha continues. Don't go away. Thanks.
Low lie the fields without the... Shadows are falling and I'm running out of breath. Keep me in your heart for a while.
Hey, we're back in This Week in Waukesha, and this is Warren Zevon's Keep Me in Your Heart, the last song he recorded before his unfortunate passing. And he's finally been nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Please do the right thing. Vote for Warren Zevon. It's vote.rockhall.com. And speaking of vote, we've also got Bob Salve here. And before we continue the conversation with Bob, to a little kind of a selfish plug. There's a young man, a young filmmaker with strong ties to Evanston. His favorite uncle was an alderman here, and his name's Davis Brown, and he's got a new movie out on Apple, be released March 31st. You can pre-order on my new Facebook page. It's facebook.com/This Week in Waukesha. There's a link to pre-order that movie. If you love science fiction, it's called Capsules. Check it out. It was featured and recognized at the Philip Dick Science Fiction Film Festival in New York. And so if you're really looking for something new and innovative, check that out. I've heard great reviews. Can't wait to see it myself. But anyway, back to Bob. We were finishing up the conversation on homelessness.
Yeah, so I had opportunity to travel to New York as a pre-Ed Koch and post to see, it's like, what's the difference here? Where it was scary walking down, like by the Javits Center, basically where that area I went to.
I've been to the Javits Center.
Right. Well, the earlier times going there, you were stepping over homeless people, as you walk down the street to get to it, and then going back, and it was just all cleaned up. And I don't know all the ins and outs of the politics of what occurred there, but just saying there is something. And I knew it wasn't totally popular, but came down on and said, we're not doing this anymore. And, so there's a solution there. I don't even know if it's been addressed. I haven't seen it in any of the agendas. So that would be one thing. You know?
And so we wanted to take time in this final segment, and we had a good conversation offline about what is it you want people to know about Bob Salve, why voters in District 2 should choose you on April 4th. And, you'd mentioned some of the initiatives that either went through or didn't go through, but the way that the city had framed it, you'd felt. So if you could talk about that.
Well, one is it's still the old Gendusa property being redeveloped, right? We live up above the hill, above the old police department, so that area doesn't really affect our views or anything with us, but it does all the rest of the neighborhood, our neighbors, and it's like what's going to be in their backyard, and we got a neighborhood coalition, and I have to say, in this case, our alderman was very on board with us, and we got 175 votes on a
petition.
On a petition,
yeah.
And and it could have been a lot more, but that's just just about that immediate area saying this is what the constituents felt would be a better solution for going in there.
Yeah.
City staff said there's two options. They were fine with either option, according to whether they presented it. And as it went through, and it's like it got totally shot down. They went with high, a 55 or older, higher rent. I mean, originally it was $2,500 a month rent, and some of the aldermen, I quoted this to you before, but I always remember the one alderman saying, "I don't care what the constituents think. I'm going to vote what I think is better for the city," and that just stuck with me. And that was just one thing. It's like, wait, you're representing constituents, and you don't care what they think. Why are you still an alderman? And I don't think people understand that that's some of the mentality that's in there. And that's why I'm looking to help change some of that, bring influence, negotiation skills.
And I got to say that's kind of a grievance that I had with many of the alders, was that they not only disregarded feedback from neighbors, from people that lived here probably longer than many of them. But the fact that they had kind of predetermined decisions based on what was maybe being fed to them from higher above, or that they wouldn't even take that into consideration. And especially if it was in your district and people alders not in your district saying, well, we got to look out for the best interests of the city. And I'm like, sometimes the best interest of the city is what's impacting the people that live in those neighborhoods, that are more invested in those neighborhoods than they are. And so, yeah, I was really not really pleased with that whole process or outcome, especially since I witnessed, some aldermen involved getting kind of bullied or sweet talked into changing their votes on that. That was all very troubling, I thought.
Well, and as putting myself in a position of being an alderman, I can look at a situation where you have two constituents, having complete opposite viewpoint as the chicken ordinance. Mm-hmm. And that's where I just think my skill sets and my whole career being in sales, business ownership, operations management, negotiation skills, I don't think it should just be ignoring one of them and saying, I'm going to go with this one. You have to explain. It's like you're gonna listen to the constituents,
hear people,
weigh it out, hear it out, and then almost like a judge and jury, it's like make this determination and make sure the person that if you're voting against what their wishes are, explaining to them why you did, and that you understand that.
I used to intern for a congressman from Michigan who would he'd always say, "Let's agree to disagree." Yeah. But in a year from now, I guarantee this law will not impact your business. And most of the time he was right, but the fact was that he at least said, let's agree to disagree. And he helped educate people and he helped explain his position. Whereas we don't get a lot of that. And it's at the local levels where we need that most. And that's what we need. And I think that's why there's only yourself running for, out of 6 open seats. Is it 6 or 5?
I didn't told it, but it's about that, trying to visualize the list. So,
because it's like people kind of give up.
Yep.
And I think in a lot of local, and I don't think this is true in Waukesha especially, but in a lot of local governments, there's that mentality of like, information given on a need-to-know basis and kind of keeping people out of the process.
It almost seems intentional. When you watching it on Chronicus or being there live and you just kind of question, why aren't you getting your feedback? Why aren't you saying my constituents,
and as someone that's an operator, when the great leader's work is done, the people say they did it themselves. And I think it's, it's that input from the people, even if you don't agree with the majority of them, it's including them in the process that makes for better local government. Yeah. So for sure. So,
well, even the water issue, the city did it all correctly. They had all these open forums and stuff.
Right.
And I've been to several of those where they have seating for like 50 people and you're sitting amongst 2 or 3 people that I'm like, well, if this is such a hot topic, why aren't the citizens there to do it? But they're going to certainly complain about it after the fact.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to help bridge that. I want to get those type of hot topics more out to that information, not just you had to take off time from work or something to come to this meeting.
Sure. Sounds great. Well, Bob Salb, candidate for 2nd District Alder, thanks for joining us today. Bob was a South parent and a Carroll University parent, so deep ties in the community. Check out Bob. I believe you have a Facebook page, right? Yep. So, and I hope to have Eric Payne on as a guest in the next 2 weeks. We've got the state champion mock trial team coming on next week. Please don't forget to elect Warren Zevon to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's vote.rockhall.com. Do the right thing. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody, and enjoy this beautiful Saturday. Bob Salb, thanks again. Please remember, safety is everyone's responsibility, especially with St. Patrick's Day coming up. Have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day. It's on a Friday, so make a week out of it. Make a weekend. And we'll see you next time on This Week in Waukesha. See ya!
Comes around again, and I sit and sing my song, though it never seems to matter.